give you a little bit of an injury update. So no change with Roger, Trey, Ely, or Ike. Crowder will miss today, a little bit of soreness, tightness, and then Kumaro will miss today also with a similar soreness as well. So with that, we'll turn it over to your questions. Yeah, I think so. We'll see. That's how I'm taking it right now. Yeah.
Coach, with respect to Coach Dorsey, I know the big question is, when the play clock starts counting down on game days, that's the new thing that he's got to prove he can do, at least to us. You guys on the inside. Are there opportunities in the camp setting for him to maybe call plays, so to speak, that aren't scripted? Because I know a lot of the team segments are scripted.
Yeah, Chris. So we try and make our practices game-like in certain ways, and one of those ways is having coordinators in these call-it periods. Some of that has already happened. Some will happen again today, and we're going to do as much of that as we can because we have new coordinators. 2 of the 3 are new coordinators. So same with Smiley a little bit on special teams. It's a little bit harder to do that, to simulate that on special teams, but yeah, to your point, we're going to do as much of that as we can through training camp. And as a coordinator, I found, and I know Leslie feels this way as well, that's good. It helps even an experienced coordinator knock the rust off, get your mind right, and then when you go back and watch the film, it's not only evaluating the scheme piece, it's evaluating, hey, was that the right call? Did I like that call that I made? And so on and so forth.
Yep. Tremaine's going into his last year of his original contract there on the day for 50. How important is the year for him? I know you guys have loved him since day one, but there is a chance, he hasn't been extended yet, that he could be playing his last year. What are you expecting from him, and what does that mean to you that he's in his last year here, possibly?
Yeah, Tremaine's done a phenomenal job. He's done everything we've ever asked since day one, and he's a consummate pro. I think he's off to a great start. He's always been in shape, and I love his command of our defense. And every year is an important year, so you never want to take that type of approach that this is, I got to do this or I got to do that. Then you play tight, and right now he's just got to go out there and play his best football, and I think he's off to a great start with that.
You guys have talked about the splash plays. We asked Leslie about it yesterday, that they're going to happen. They may not have happened as much for him as you would have thought for 4 years, but what do you think about that, Sean? Just his ability he's got to make more splash plays.
Well, I think those come also over time, and when you're comfortable with the system, and I think he's primed to play his best football this season.
Sean, with guys entering a contract year in general, do you ever feel the need to have conversations with them about not trying to do too much or trying to just keep them focused on football? How do you handle guys? You have a bunch of them that are entering their final year of the deal.
Yeah, that's real, John. Just again going, especially for guys who are going through that for the first time, having never been through that, it's a little bit of a different deal. That's where our player development team does a great job in meeting the players where they're at in their career. We have programming where guys coming out of year one, okay, what does it look like? What challenges are there? Some of the landmines that could be there that you don't know are there. Coming out of year 2, coming out of year 3, going into your contract year, so on and so forth. So we try and meet the players where they are in their career or just day to day, and this is something that we always have to be aware of. And sometimes you do see players kind of, as they say, what in hockey, gripping the stick too tight, but in this case, I think Tremaine's off to a great start, specifically for Tremaine, and he doesn't appear to be doing that.
I know how much the quarterback room, the communication piece is super important to you. So take us into there from what you've seen this summer and so far. What's that like with Ken and Joe and Matt and Case and everybody from an outside observer who's kind of watching how they interact? What's that like?
I think the symmetry there is really fun to watch with amongst the players, and then their interactions with Joe and Ken as well. And then I would say overall offensively with the staff, the additions of Cromer and the other guys that we've added there, some of the younger guys as well that you don't hear as much about. I've enjoyed watching that over the first couple of days, and then going back to the spring as well.
Sean, identity, and I'm keeping my feet down so I don't blind you with shoes. Identity's been a big catchphrase or buzzword over the first couple of days of camp. Josh said, we've got a new identity. Has that been something that's come from you as message, and what is it about identity that the reason why that's being stressed with?
Well, we talk about it as a team. We talk about one of our goals of coming to training camp is that you need to develop an identity as to, hey, this is what we're about. And some of that, again, takes shape throughout the course of training camp because, and why not before is because, it's not training camp. You don't have pads on. It's not real football, and still isn't. But this is the time that we try and come together, as I've said before, and then within that human element, there's also a football element philosophically of what we want to establish and what we know we need to do, and then also the different pieces we have and how it all blends together. Okay, that we can do this. We're, some people would say pass first team, run first team, just to simplify it. That's kind of how it takes shape a little bit in terms of, hey, we feel like we can run the ball, or we feel like we want to run the ball outside. We want to run the ball inside. That's just. I'm just saying that educationally for you guys of how I think coaches' minds work a little bit, and you try and identify your strengths more than anything this time of year, but those can ebb and flow throughout the course of the season as well. So long-winded answer, but you want to have a decent feel for who you are philosophically, systematically, for sure. One of the key pieces of what we're doing here, Brandon and I, are we've got to make sure we've got and identified the right pieces when we break camp, not from here, but also from Buffalo.
And have you, not to say that you haven't stressed identity in your previous years, but is it more so important to stress because you have had some turnover at the coordinator level and you've got maybe more new pieces here than you had in previous years?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's important to have an identity, to have a feel for who you are, and how the pieces are fitting together, but not anything more this year than in years past.
Sean, when Levi was here, you used to talk about him being the undrafted guy and working against number one pick like Trey and all. Do you see some of the same things in Dane Jackson from where he came in with you guys? Now you got a couple number one picks at corner. Do you see that same type of attitude?
Yeah, I never want to compare two players, but I think Dane's his own guy. I think he's his own player. He's extremely mature in his approach off the field. He works his butt off, and he's going to put his own signature on the position, and I think he's off to a good start.
Sean, so you're a coach in the NFL. Getting fired is kind of part of the business. You've got a quarterback coach, Joe Brady, who had that happen for the first time last year. What is that like when that happens for the first time, and how do you think he's kind of dealt with moving on from it?
You take me back in my mind, at least, to walking through the complex in Philadelphia years ago, and Jim Johnson. I was walking beside two veteran coordinators, and Jim Johnson and Rod Dowhauer at the time, who was our offensive coordinator, and I was a young guy, and thought I was every year my career had trended up, and so we were coming off of lunch, walking upstairs back to the offices, and the two of them said, "Yeah, you'll see, and you're not a coach until you've been fired." And so I just shook my head, yes, I agree. And then, but in my mind, I was saying, I'll be different, And 2 years, whatever amount of years later, I officially became a coach. But you learn a lot through that, and I think there's, in some ways, two types of coaches: those that handle that and reflect and grow from it, and then those that maybe point the finger and say at everything else, and say, no, it wasn't me, it was that or them. And in this case, I think Joe has done a great job of reflecting and growing, and I think he's a fantastic coach.
Sean, yesterday, we were talking to Stefan Diggs about his leadership. We started talking about the young guys and what he does with them. Then he brought up Tavon Austin, called him a legend, and remembering his college days. What can that mean for a guy like Diggs, an established guy, all-pro, to have a guy that means that much to him in the room and working with him to push him, and he'll push him back?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we've got a very close-knit wide receiver room, and all the different personalities in there. You've got a guy like Tavon who's a little bit older, and what a career he had at West Virginia, right? He's going to the Hall of Fame now at West Virginia, and the career he's had around the NFL, the different teams, and how long he's been around the NFL, and just seeing him this morning in the weight room and how serious he is, how passionate he is about his career and his craft, the juice he plays with on the field. I think there's a lot our team can learn from by watching Tavon.
John, Prestonberry's story obviously is a pretty inspiring one. Can you just kind of speak to, what a guy who battles cancer and beats it, comes back and plays in the league, and has this opportunity? I don't know how much he shared with you, but if you could maybe share with us what you think of a guy who's overcome that mountain.
Yeah, I think he hasn't shared a lot, very in depth about that journey, but just on the surface, what that means in terms of what he's been through, what his family's been through. You see that reflected in his daily habits, though. Nothing seems to phase him, and we put him at 2 different positions in the first 2 days, and he just does it. And I think that says a lot about who he is. And again, you learn a lot through the challenges of life, and I'm just happy to have him here with us.
Sean, going back to Tremaine, you mentioned on NFL Network yesterday that he was one of the leaders of this team. Do you expect him to take a step forward in his leadership this season or maintain what he did last year?
I think he's always been the leader, in particular the last couple of years where he's really asserted himself and been comfortable, Maddie, in that role. And now it's just more of him just continuing to grow and mature, because remember how young he was when he came here a few years ago. So that's just, I think, the natural evolution of his growth. Is part of it's on the field, part of it's off the field in this case, and I think he's just been becoming more and more comfortable. Like the other day, the offense was doing some things, and he was right on it and communicating that to the defense, and that's something I hadn't seen to this point. So very impressed by that.
When you talk about team philosophy and using training camp to kind of figure out what this team will be, how much do you want continuity there, or how much do you have to fully adapt it to?
Yeah, I think he adapted every year. I mean, there's certain things that we believe in as a staff, we believe in as an organization. From Terry and Kim on down, and whether it's on the field or off the field. And on the field in this case, philosophically, there's some things that are never going to change with how the game needs to be played, as far as I'm concerned. That being said, though, I believe you have to adapt. I think that's what good coaches do, is they adapt to the players around them, as opposed to taking a system and making the players, shoving it down their throat, making the players adjust to the system. We're going to take our system and adjust it to the players that we have.
Does that go back to the identity question? Because I think people confuse identity with we're a man team, zone team, or run team, pass team. But for you, I think identity is who you are as people, who you are as an organization.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's big picture, and then it goes down to the detail too. In this case, of you take the players and you see what they do best, and then hey, we'll make adjustments as necessary to fit their strengths and try and manage some of the weaknesses, because I think that's important in giving the players the best chance to be the best version of themselves.
Sean, how ready do you think Dave Davis is, given the progression of his career? And he was, seemed mature right from the start, then make some touch plays in the Indy game, and then what he did last, at Kansas City. How ready do you feel he is to make that next step in taking over that maybe number 2 role?
Yeah, I think just total confidence in Gabe. From day one, he's made plays, right, in that first year, and then last year, I know what he wanted last year. He wanted that chance last year, and there was a few players around and above him in terms of the depth chart, and but he worked, and that's a great lesson to those that don't get their shot right away, right? And when he was given his shot, though, he made the most of it, and I think the world saw that in particular at the end of the season there. And as far as his ascent into that number 2 spot or whatever, I think that that still remains to be seen. I mean, that's a little bit of a different deal there, and people know, opponents know, there's a little bit of a different focus on that spot as opposed to the 3 or 4 spot from time to time. So. Do I think he can do it? I absolutely do. Full confidence in Gabe Davis, and but he knows he's got to earn that spot.
John, how much have you had to change your overall training camp philosophy? Because normally today would be the fast stuff, and now you have to wait until Saturday. So from evaluation, practice standpoint, how much have you had to alter things?
Derek and I were talking over dinner last night. Brandon was there, I believe, too, about it used to be you come in and you have one day of conditioning test and then one shorts and helmets practice, and then the next 3 days were two-a-days, all in pads, and it was a grind. And so, listen, like I said yesterday to somebody else, I think the rules are put in place for a reason. There's a reason behind it. So we abide by those rules, and at the end of the day, everyone's abiding by those rules. That's what we're called to do. So we make the most of it, and we get our players acclimated so that we can avoid and they can avoid injuries that make them unavailable. So we adjust as necessary.
Dawson Knox was raving about O.J. Howard physically, and then what do you see in him? And from a defensive side, what kind of problems? They were talking about them causing matchup problems for other people. Somebody, maybe even the two of them together on the field.
Yeah, we'll see. O.J. is a physical specimen when you see him out there, and he's big, he's fast, he's strong. So we'll see how it all comes together, really. And I think that's what, again, we talk about philosophy and more so identity. We'll see what comes of who can make plays and block at the line of scrimmage. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Could you say Sal Mariana gets fined?
Is that the extra question?
No.
Who's Catalan?
No, you're the one who